Suresh, he initially has got rupees 200 with him in his Paytm wallet. He is first increasing this amount by 20 percentage, and then once again he is increasing his amount by another 25 percentage. The final value of money in his wallet, it will be how much percentage greater than the initial amount? That is the question. So initially he had 200 with him. First he is increasing that amount by 20 percentage, and then once again he is increasing his amount by 25 percentage. The final value of money in his wallet, it will be how much percentage greater than the initial amount? That is the question. So to start with a question of this kind, we have to assume, let the initial amount Suresh he had, let that be equal to rupees. Okay, it is given in the question, right? Yeah, it is given to be rupees 200. So 200 rupees initially there with Suresh. He is first increasing this amount by 20 percentage. So 200 into 20 upon 100, that is equal to 40. So he is increasing this 200 rupees by an amount of 40 rupees. So the revised amount that he has in his wallet after this initial 20 percentage increase, that will be equal to 200 plus 40, that comes to rupees 240. Now we can do this in single step. 200 is the initial amount he has with him. 20 percentage increase, if that has to be considered, just multiply 200 with 1.2. 20 percentage, it corresponds to 1.2 in terms of that increased aspect. So 200 into 1.2, this value comes to rupees 240. Now, had it been 20 percentage decreased, that is, he decreased the amount by 20 percentage, then in that case, he should perform 200 into 0.80. 20 percentage decrease means from 100 you are subtracting that 20. So it becomes 80 in terms of percentage. When I convert it into its equivalent decimal, it comes to 0.8. So in single step, we can do it in this way. If that doesn't come to your mind, then just perform this operation. 200 into 20 upon 100, that is equal to 40. That is the amount that you have to add to this 200. Thus, it becomes 240. That is the first phase of that increase that happens. And then he is increasing it again by 25 percentage. So in this case, in single step, if you are asking me to calculate this 240, he is increasing it by 25 percentage. So I have to multiply this 240 with 1.25, and this gives me the result 300, if I am not wrong. Let me just verify it. Yeah, 200 into 1.25, it comes to rupees 300, and this is the final amount that he has in his wallet. So the initial amount, it is given to be 200. After two successive increments, 20 percentage and 25 percentage, the final value, it comes to rupees 300. So we can see that percentage change, it is given by the equation final value minus initial value upon initial value into 100. In this case, it comes to 300 minus 200 divided by initial value, that is 200 into 100, and this comes to 50 percentage. We can see that the initial amount 200, when it increases and it becomes 300, then it corresponds to 50 percentage increase. So for our first question, it is asked the final value of money in his wallet will be 50 percentage greater than the initial amount. 50 percentage the value got increased. That will be the final answer for our first question. So I assume this explanation is clear for you. So with this, we will now go to the second question. So please read the second question that I have shared with you. In the second question, it's given that in a library, 60% of the books, they are in Hindi. So in a library, 60% of the books, it corresponds to the Hindi language. Then it is given that 60% of the remaining books are in English and the rest of the books, they are in Malayalam. There are 4,800 books in English. Then what is the total number of books in Malayalam? That is the question that is being asked. For solving a question of this kind, it is strongly recommended you assume that the total initial number of books in the library, the total number of books in the library, you assume that value to be equal to 100. So in this library, 60% of the books, they are in Hindi. So out of this 100, 60 books, it corresponds to the Hindi language. So 100 minus 60 when I consider, it corresponds to 40. So 40 books remaining in the library. Now it is given that 60% of this remaining number of books, it corresponds to English. So 40 is the, if you assume the initial number to be 100, then 40 books are remaining. This 40, it's 60%, that is 40 into 60 upon 100, that corresponds to 24. We can see that 24 books corresponds to the English language. So I shall write it here. 24 books, it corresponds to English language. So from 40, when 24 goes, we can see that the remaining value, it comes to 24 plus 6, it comes to 30, plus 10, it comes to 40. So 16 books, it remains. It is given in the question that these remaining books, it corresponds to the Malayalam language. So if you assume the initial value to be 100, 60 corresponds to Hindi, 40 remains. It's a 60%, that is 24 corresponds to English. So 16 remains. So these 16 books corresponds to Malayalam. Now in the question, it is given that if 24 books corresponds to English, then 16 books, it corresponds to Malayalam. So if you consider that there is only one English book, then the number of Malayalam books proportionately, it will come to 16 upon 24. But in the question, it is given that there are 4,800 books in English. So it's not one English book, it corresponds to 4,800 books in English. If so, the number of Malayalam books, it will be 16 upon 24 into 4,800. 24 and 48, it will go twice. So 200 into 16, the value comes to 3200. So I can conclude that had there been 4,800 English books, then in that case, 3,200 Malayalam books will be there. So in the question given that if there are 4,800 books in English, then what is the total number of books in Malayalam? The value comes to 3,200. And that will be the final answer for our second question. So 3,200, that is the final answer for our second question. So with this, we will now go to our third question. So please go through the third question, which I have posted there. I shall also narrate that or dictate this question for you. In the third question, it is given that 80% of a small number is 4 less than 40% of a larger number. The larger number is 125 the larger number is 125 greater than the smaller one. What is the sum of these two numbers? That is the question. So in this question, clearly we can see that there are two numbers involved, a larger number and a smaller number. The larger number is 125 greater than the smaller number. So if I assume that the two numbers are the larger number using the letter L, the smaller number using the letter S, I can conclude that L minus S, this value, it comes to 125. In the question, it is indicated that 80% of the smaller number, that is 0.8s, when I consider 80% of the smaller number, it is said to be 4 less than 40% of the larger number. So first we have to consider 40% of the larger number, that comes to 0.4 L, 40% of the larger number, 4 less than this. So from this I have to subtract 4. So that's the result we have. 0.8 S is equal to 0.4 L minus 4. I'm going to multiply all left hand side and right hand side using the number 10. So that gives me 8S is equal to 4L minus 40. Common factor 4 I can cancel here. So that gives me 2S is equal to L minus 10, or that gives me L, it is equal to 2S plus 10. So this is the result which I am having here. Substitute the value for L in this equation. I will get it as 2S plus 10 minus S. That comes to 125. From this, I have 2S minus S, that is equal to S plus 10. This value, it comes to 125. Solving which, I will get the value for S as 125 minus 10. That comes to 150. And this is the value associated with the smaller number. We also have the result L minus S is equal to 125. So that gives me L, it is equal to 115 plus 125. And that value comes to 100 plus 100, 200. 25 plus 15, that value comes to 40. So we have 240. That will be the value associated with the larger number. Now in the question, we are asked to find the sum of these two numbers, that is the larger number and the smaller number. So we are asked to find out L plus S, and that comes to 240 plus 150, and this total comes to 355, and that will be the final answer for this question. So for our third question, we are asked to find the sum of these two numbers involved. The value come to 355, and that is the final answer for our question here. I assume that the explanation is clear for you all. So with this, we will now go to our fourth question. So please read the fourth question and try to understand what is given over there. Just give me one quick minute. I assume that the audio and the video clarity it is there. In case if you are facing any difficulty, then feel free to let me know that. Okay, I just went to check that only. I assume that things are clear. So in case if there is any problem, feel free to let me know that. Okay. In the fourth question, we can see that in a college, there are 1,800 students. Last day, except 4% of the boys, all students were present in the college. Today, except 5% of the girls, all students are present in the college. But in both days, the number of students present in the college, they were the same. That is what it is given. What is the number of girls in the college? Okay, for solving this question, we have to consider that in this question, there are two sets of students to be considered, the boys and the girls. So I can see that the total number of students, B plus G, the total number of students, the value comes to 1800. So that's the total number of students. Last day, 4% of the boys were absent, which means 96% of the boys were present. So we can see that 0.96 times B, the total number of boys, I assume it to be B. So 96% of B comes to B into 96 upon 100, that is 0.96 B. So except 4% of boys, all other students were present, which means 96% of the boys and all the girls, they were present. This happened yesterday, that is last day, that is what it is given in the question. Today, except 5% of the girls, all the students were present in the college. That's what it is. Total number of girls 100%. In that 5% of the girls didn't show up, which means 95% of the girls have attended that day. So 95% of the number of girls, 0.95 G, plus all the boys have attended the class that day, plus B, that will be the total number of students that has attended the session today. That is, except 5% of the girls, every other student has attended the class. So all boys have attended, 95% of the girls have attended. So if I'm adding them, this is the total number of students who attended the class on this day, today. Likewise, 96% of the boys and all the girls, they have attended the class the last day. It is given in the question that these. So with this, I can now conclude that G minus 0.95 G, that comes to 0.05 G, that is equal to B minus 0.96 B, that comes to 0.04 B. So upon simplification, I can see that 5G, that will be equal to 4B, or I can conclude that G upon B 4 upon 5. That is the ratio of the number of girls and boys. It is in the ratio 4:5. Only then we have 4B, it is equal to 5G coming into picture. So the ratio of number of boys, we are now arriving at the value, it is equal to 4:5. Now, as I have already indicated in our class, every ratio is associated with a multiplication factor. It does not mean that there are 4 girls and only 5 boys in the class. The total number of girls in the class, it will come to some 4x, and the total number of boys in the class, it will come to some 5x, where x is the multiplication factor of this ratio. So the total number of girls plus total number of boys, that comes to 9x, and that is equal to 1800, solving which we will get the value for x here as 1800 upon 9, and that comes to 200. So the multiplication factor in this case, it is equal to 200. Now in the question, we are asked to find out what is the total number of girls in the class, in the college. The total number of girls, that ratio corresponds to 4:5, girl is to boy. So multiplying it with that multiplication factor 200, we have identified. The total number of boys in the class, it comes to 5x, that is 5 into 200, that comes to 1000. And the total number of girls in the class, it comes to 4 into 200, that comes to 800. And thus we have B plus G, that value coming to 1800. The number of girls in the class, the value, it is equal to 800. And that will be the final answer for our 4th question. I assume that the explanation is loud and clear for you all. So that brings conclusion to our 4th question. Now let us go to the 5th question here. In this 5th question, we are considering a lady by name Veena who bought a watch. The cost of that watch, it comes to 1404, including the sales tax at the rate of 8%. Now she is asking the shopkeeper to reduce the price of the watch so that she can save the amount that is equivalent to that of tax. So let us assume that the price that Veena, she is willing to pay, let that be equal to P. Now, along with this P, that is the price that she is supposed to pay, plus 8% comes as tax, that is P into 8 upon 100. This total, it should be equal to 1404. Okay. So we can see that Veena, she don't want to pay that tax. She want to save that tax. So we can see that let the price for which she is going to, or she is planning to buy that particular watch, let it be P. So she should be paying that P, and along with that, the tax, the total should come to 1404. So this is nothing but P into 1.08, this value it is equal to 1404. That gives us P is equal to 1404 upon 1.08, and this value comes to 1300. So we can see that if the shopkeeper reduces the price from 1404 to 1300, that comes to a reduction of 104 rupees, then she will be buying this particular watch for an amount of 1404 rupees, and she is actually demanding the shopkeeper to reduce the price of the watch by 104 rupees. That is that amount equivalent to that of the tax. So what is the reduction of the price of the watch? That value comes to 104 rupees. So she is planning to buy it for 1300 rupees, so that along with that tax the total amount comes to 1404. So she wants to reduce the price of the watch by 104 rupees. 104 is the final answer for our fifth question. Now let us consider the sixth question which I have shared with you. So please go through the sixth question. In this question, we are considering a sales executive who gets a commission on total sales at 8%. So whatever the sales amount let it be, that executive will be getting 8% of that amount as commission. Now, if the sale it exceeds 10,000 rupees, whatever that is over 10,000 rupees, for that he will be getting a bonus of 4%. So, on a particular situation, the total commission, that is commission amount plus that bonus the sales executive got, it comes to 950. We are asked to find what is the bonus that he received. So for that, what I am going to first consider is, let me assume the total sales that this guy made. The total sales that this guy made, let it be equal to some X rupees. This X, it will definitely be more than 10,000 rupees, because had it been equal to or less than or equal to 10,000, then 8% of 10,000, that commission amount, it would have come to 8% of 10,000, that comes to only 800 rupees. But here he is getting 950 rupees. So he would have definitely made the total sales amount, it should be greater than 10,000. Only then he will be getting 950 rupees as his total commission, which includes the bonus also. So this total sales amount, whatever be, it's 8%, that is X into 8 upon 100. This is the one part of the commission that he is going to get, X into 8 upon 100, plus whatever that is over 10,000, that is X minus 10,000. For this amount, he is enjoying a 4% bonus. So whatever this excess amount, it's 4% also he will be getting as his commission. So the legitimate commission plus that extra commission that he gets for the sales that he makes above 10,000, that is 4% of that value, extra value. This total adds up to give you 950 rupees. That is the total commission amount as given in the question. So from this I can see that 8x upon 100 plus 4x upon 100, that is 12x upon 100 minus 10,000 into 4 upon 100. That value comes to 400. That total comes to 950. So this gives me 12x upon 100, that is equal to 950 plus 400, that comes to 1350. Solving which, I will get the value for x as 1350 into 100 upon 12, and this amount comes to, if I'm not wrong, it comes to 11,250. That should be the amount that he should be getting. Yes, the value comes to 11,250. 1350 into 100 upon 12. That value comes to 11,250. So this is the total amount of this particular sales X. The total sales value, it comes to bonus that he received. Bonus he gets for 11250 minus 10,000. That value comes to 1,250 1,250 into 4 upon 100, and this value comes to rupees 50. So for this particular question, the bonus amount, it comes to rupees 50. The total amount that he gets as commission other than this bonus, that value comes to 900. So altogether for this particular sixth question, the bonus he received, it is equal to rupees 50. That bonus he gets for whatever sales he makes above 10,000 rupees. So 10,000 minus 11250, that value comes to 1250. That 1250, it's 4%. So 1250 into 4 upon 100, that value comes to rupees 50. So for sixth question, the answer, it is rupees 50. And with this, we have completed the sixth question also. Now let us go to the seventh question. In this question, it is given that in a private company, 60% of the employees are men. So we can conclude that if the total number of employees in this particular private firm, it is equal to 100, 60 are men. So we can consider that the remaining 40, they are female, or I will consider remaining 40, they are women. Okay. Now, it is given in the question that 48% of the employees in this particular company, they are engineers. So, out of this 100 employees, 48 of them, they are non-engineers. So, that's what I can conclude. Now, it is given that 66.6%, if you convert it into equivalent fraction, we can see that 66.6 2 upon 3. So we can see that 2/3 of the engineers are men. So the number of engineers, it is equal to 40. It's 2/3. That is 40 into 2 upon 3. Okay, sorry, 48 into 2 upon 3, because 48 are engineers. So 48 into 2 upon 3, this value, we can see that this comes to 16 into 2, 32. We can see that out of this 48 engineers, 32 of them are men, because it is given that 48% of the employees are engineers, and 2/3 of these engineers, they are men. So 48 into 2 by 3, that comes to 32, and they are engineers. So I can see that out of this 40 women, 16 women, they are engineers. So the remaining, when I consider 16 plus 4, 20, 20 plus 20, 40, 24 women, they belong to non-engineers. Okay, so I can see that out of this 48, 32 are men. So the remaining 16 women, they are engineers. So 40 women, when I consider 16 are engineers, means 24 of them are non-engineers. Now in the question, they are asking you, what is the percentage of women who are not engineers? The number of women who are not engineers, it comes to 24. But in terms of percentage, when we are asked to find, we have to consider this 24 in the numerator. It is given what percentage of women. So this 24, it should be the numerator, and then the denominator, it should be equal to 40, because when you are considering the percentage aspect there, what percentage of women who are not engineers, that's what they are asking here. It's not what percentage of the total women, sorry, what is the number of women out of the total number of people who are non-engineers. If they are asking, then we could have straight away marked it as 24%. But here, what percentage of women who are not engineers? So 24 out of 40 into 100, when I perform, it comes to 60%. So thus I can conclude that 60% of the women who are not engineers. That is the answer. 60% is the final answer for our question here. So for the seventh question, 60% is the answer. Now let us consider question number 8. So for our previous question, kindly note 60% is the answer. In the denominator, we should put the total number of women, that comes to 40. So we can see that 24 out of 40 into 100, it comes to 60%. For the eighth question, we have to assume Mr. Ramesh, he had rupees 100 with him initially. So from this 100, 10% of this amount he is giving to his wife. So 100 into 10 upon 100, that is rupees 10, he is giving it to his wife. So from 100, when 10 rupees goes, he is now left with rupees 90. Now it is given that 10% of this remaining amount he is giving to the hospital. So the remaining amount is 90. It's 10%. It comes to rupees 9. That is what he is giving to hospital. So we can see that 90 minus 9, that value comes to rupees 81. We can see that 81 rupees, 81, that is what it is remaining with him. It is given in the question that again 10% of this remaining amount he is giving to charity. So this remaining amount 81, from this he is giving 10% of 81 comes to rupees 8.1. He is giving it to charity. So from 81, when 8.1 rupees goes, what remains? It is equal to rupees 72.9. So this is the amount that remains with him. If I assume that the initial amount that is there with this man, Mr. Ramesh, it is equal to rupees 100. So I can conclude that 72.9 remains with him. If the initial amount, it comes to rupees 100. But in the question, it is given that the person, he is left with rupees 7290 after all these process. It is not 72.9, it comes to 7290, which means it is 100 times 72.9. So the total amount he had with him, it will be 100 into 100. Proportionately, this increases and that value comes to rupees 10,000. So we can conclude that initially Mr. Ramesh, he had rupees 10,000 with him, and that will be the final answer for our question. Questions of this type, when it comes, assume the total initial value to be equal to 100 and then see the changes, and then you make the comparison with what remains or what the other value that is given, and based on that proportionately consider what was the initial amount. So that will be an easier method that you can adopt. 10,000 will be the final answer for our question here. Now, in the next question, that is the ninth question, the penultimate question. We can see that initially a shopkeeper had X number of pens. Let me assume this X, let it be equal to 100. So initially 100 pen, it was there with that shopkeeper. Customer 1 bought 10% of pens from X. So 100 into 10 upon 100, that value comes to 10. So 10 pens, it goes to customer 1, or customer 1 buys 10 pens. So what remains? 90 pence. From 100, when 10 goes off, 90 pence, it remains. Now in the question, it is given that another customer bought 20% of the remaining. That is 20% of this 90. That comes to 90 into 20 upon 100. That comes to 80. So customer 2, he takes off 18 pence from this 90. So 90 minus 18, when I consider, the total comes to 18 plus 2, that comes to 20, 20 plus 70, that comes to 90. So 72 pence is what it remains. 90 minus 18, the value comes to 72. Now it is given that from this, one more customer purchased 25% of this remaining 72. That is 72 remains 72 into 1 by 4. This 25%, its equivalent fraction is 1 by 4. So from this 72, 1 by 4, 72 into 1 by 4, when I calculate, it comes to 18. 18 pence, that's what customer 3 buys. So from this 72, when 18 goes off, we can see that 54 pen, that's what it remains with the shopkeeper. 54 plus 10, 64, 64 plus 8, that value comes to 72. So 54 is the number of pen that remains with the shopkeeper. So we can see that if the initial value is 100, like this, 10 pence it goes to customer 1, 18 goes to customer 2, 18 goes to customer 3. Finally, the shopkeeper is left with 54 pence. But in the question, it is given that the shopkeeper is left with 270 pence in his shop. And how many pence were there initially in the shop? That is the question. So we can now make a comparison here. 54 pen remains in the shop if I assume that the initial value to be 100. If 1 pen it remains in the shop, then 100 by 54, this would have been the initial number of pens. But in the question, it is given that 270 pence, that's what it remains in the shop. So it's not 1, it is 270 as indicated in the question. Then the number of pence, that value comes to 100 into 270 divided by 54. And that value upon calculation, it comes to 500. So from this, I can conclude that initially the shopkeeper, he had 500 pence with him in the shop. So that will be the answer for our question. So if I'm going to multiply everything, because the multiplication factor associated with this question, it is equal to 5. So I can conclude that 54 into 5, that value comes to 270. So I can conclude that 270 pence remains. So I can even conclude that customer 1, he would have purchased 50 pence, because 10 into 5, 50 pence, customer 1 would have bought. 18 into 5, 90 pence, customer 2 would have bought. 18 into 5, 90 pence, customer 3 would have bought. Like that, the sale would have happened. And the initial number of pence available, it is equal to 500. So for question number 9, 500 will be the final answer. And here comes the last question for tonight's session, the 10th question. Please read the question here. The cost of packaging of the oranges is 20% of the cost of fresh oranges themselves. So let me assume that cost of fresh orange, let that be equal to rupees 100. This is the initial case. Okay. So initial cost of this fresh orange, let it be equal to rupees 100. The cost of packaging, I shall indicate it here as packaging cost. That value comes to 20% of this cost, that is 100 into 20 upon 100, that value comes to rupees 20. So from this, I can now find the total cost, that is equal to cost of the fresh orange plus packaging cost, that will be 100 plus 20, that comes to rupees 120. So this is the total initial, that is in the initial case, the total cost, the value comes to rupees 120. Now it is given that the cost of oranges, it increased by 30%. So initial cost, we assume the value to be 100. So the revised cost, when I consider the cost of fresh oranges, it becomes rupees 130. 30% increase, it happens from 100. So 100 becomes 130. It is given that the cost of packaging, it decreased by 50%. Initially, it is equal to 20. 50% reduction means now the packaging cost, it is equal to rupees 10. The total cost will be cost of the orange plus packaging cost, that comes to rupees 130 plus 10, that is equal to rupees 140. So I can see that before the revision happened, the total cost was 120. After this revision, the total cost, it comes to 140. Now they are asking us, what is the percentage change of the cost of packed oranges? Given that the total cost, it is equal to cost of the orange plus package cost. So I can say that the initial value is 120, the final value is 140. The percentage change, if I am considering, that will be final value minus initial value upon initial value into 100. That will be 140 minus 120 upon initial value, it is 120 into 100, and that comes to 140 minus 120, that value comes to 20. 20 upon 120 into 100, that value comes to 1 upon 6, and that is nothing but 16.67 percentage. We can see that 16.67 percentage increase, it happens in the total cost. So for the 10th question, we can see that the total cost, it has increased by 16.67 percentage.